So this is the wiring, the socket for the wiring of the oxygen sensor. As you'll see, an electrician stripped the original wiring, ruining the wiring of this Miata because they don't have a socket for the oxygen sensor. The local version here in the Philippines, Mazda removed the oxygen sensor socket by removing the socket and cutting the wires near the oxygen sensor, disabling the feedback for the oxygen sensor. Since during the time of the release of the Mazda Miata here, during the 90s, the fuel here in the Philippines have a lead content, which will eventually foul the oxygen sensor and destroy the feedback system. But for me, this is not the proper remedy for installing an oxygen sensor. They should have just inserted pins here if they don't have a socket, because it's very important for me to preserve the original wiring system. So I'll just repair this. Also here, as you'll see, there's an electrical tape here. I'm sure a technician cut the wires just to test, again ruining the wiring system. Balatan mo to, ano? So we'll show you here what's inside. I'm sure there's a strip in the wires. So as you'll see here, one of the wires is already deteriorated. We're just gonna fix this. I'll show you after fixing it. So here's the socket after repairing it. As you'll see, there are no cracks anymore. Very clean. So we'll just clean the socket here. There are signs of melting here. I'm sure previously the engine bay caught fire. That's why some of the sockets are melted, as you'll see. But this cast socket is still reusable. But for the oxygen sensor socket, as you'll see, it cannot be used anymore. So I'm going to change the socket for the oxygen sensor. So here's my stash of Mazda EFI sockets, already segregated as to the purpose. This is an IAT ECT socket here, injector, fuel pump, idle up, solenoid, injector link socket. And for the 4 pins that we need for the oxygen sensor, where's that oxygen sensor socket? Yeah. So this is the socket for the oxygen sensor. You can't plug the matching socket here for the oxygen sensor side. This is the matching socket for the oxygen sensor side. As you'll see, we can't insert the socket since it's deformed already. So we're going to change the socket, and also we're gonna need this one here, the female socket, so that this is for the oxygen sensor side, this is for the harness side, this one here. So let's there. So this is much better. This one here is still usable, but little burnt on the edges, but still can still be plugged here, as you'll see, as compared to this melted one. But I'm going to use this fresher one here. There you go. So we're going to use this one here. It's after repairing the oxygen sensor socket, the harness for the oxygen sensor. There you go. The socket is again perfect. Also the wires, there's no splicing anymore here. This one is a signal wire. There's a factory, there's an electrical tape here to insulate the ground. So there you go, perfect, together with the cast socket here. The cast socket, we already cleaned the cast socket, unlike before. There's an overspray paint, but of course the melting is still here. The cast socket need not be changed since it's still functional. Here's the wiring for the alternator. I'll show you how the previous electrician or technician handled the wiring. So this is not OEM anymore. It has been repaired. As you will see, there's a heat shrink. That's not OEM. So it has been repaired. So it goes here. And as you'll see, the socket for the alternator here also been repaired. Very long. It's good that they used the heat shrink wrap, but as you'll see, looks like the soldering is not good. Connection is so thick. There's a bulge in between the connection, and it's too long. As you'll see, it goes here, it plugs here. So as you'll see, it's too long. The work has been done without passion, just to accomplish the work, but doesn't look good. So I'm going to revise this. First we'll check the inside connection. Nah, there's no soldering. Very bad. So as you'll see, also no soldering. Wires are just twisted together. Also here, I'm sure insulator is good, but the connection is bad. Also here, I'm sure the same thing. You see? I'm going to repair this to make it look OEM again, as if nothing happened. So this is after repairing the wiring for the alternator. As you'll see, as if nothing happened. It's back to OEM. So here we strip the wire for the alternator. We remove the non-OEM heat shrink. Remove. Sige, tanggalin mo. Hilahin mo na yan. There you go. And so here's the exposed wires. Wire deteriorated due to heat, as you'll see. You'll see there the insulator of the wire deteriorated, and as you'll see, there are wires, strand of wires already cut. Connection is not good anymore for the power wire of the alternator. As you'll see, it's now better. There are non-original wires here going through this hole for the evaporator. This wire here and this wire here. Sige, pakita mo sa akin yung ano, yung pinagkabitan nito. Yung sa loob. Toggle switch. So I'm going to remove these two non-OEM wires here. Remove mo itong electrical tape na yun. Sige, hilahin mo yung dalawang wire na yan. LG, hilahin mo pa loob. So we're going to remove these wires, pulling it from the inside of the car. There we go. There you go. Back to OEM. I also noticed a hose clamp here at the fittings for the evaporator. I think the previous aircon technician over torqued this. I think there's a crack, that's why they placed a clamp, hose clamp, because there's no point in clamping this unless there's a crack already. So to remove non-OEM wires, so they tap the non-OEM wires here, the power wire for the alternator and the ignition triggered IG1 triggered positive 12 volts for the EGI relay. So we're going to remove this and this. Not a good approach if you just want to access a 12 volt supply. There's a cleaner way in doing that. This wiring technician just ruins the originality of the system by splicing wires everywhere. Of course, it's better if there's no splicing. We'll see. Also, this one here, they're just adding risk of fire by doing this. So we're going to also here, the wire here, not a good approach. You'll see there's wire splicing. So we're going to remove this non-OEM wiring here. There you go, we removed the non-OEM wires. You'll see the effect of just splicing anywhere just to get a 12 volts power, where you can just add a terminal somewhere here, and for cleaner wiring and a safer wiring. So here's the socket for the igniter. As you'll see, there's also wire splicing at all the wires of this igniter socket. Gonna open all this electrical tape here and check the inside. So there you go. The electrical tape is now removed. As you'll see, all the wires have splicing. It weakens the wire, like here when we remove the electrical tape. This happened. This is done by majority of electricians. Just to test the wire, they need to, I don't know with them, they splice the wire just for testing. They're just ruining the original OEM wiring, deteriorating the wiring. As you'll see, this is not deterioration. No? This is splicing. Because if this is deterioration, you can test it by bending the wire like this. And if it cracks, then the insulator is already brittle. But it's not. So you'll see, if the insulator is already brittle, when I do this, it will crack here. So you'll see it's not. So the insulator is still good, but they're just splicing by, I don't know, with other technicians. So you'll see all of the wires are spliced. So we need to repair this. So here's the igniter socket after repairing it. As you'll see, it's very clean again. No splicing, no wire splicing. Back to OEM. These are the part of the EFI harness. This is for the TPS, the idle air control valve, and the power steering load sensor. As you'll see, there are evidence of wire splicing again. Here, we're gonna remove the electrical tape. The rubber here for the TPS is worn already, deteriorated. So you'll see, and the clip is not OEM. We're gonna remove first the electrical tape here and check out the splicing. This is the socket for the TPS. As you'll see, all the three wires also have splicing. Again, a bad habit of common electricians, splicing wires just to test the system. Sige, balatan mo to. So as you'll see, the wire for the TPS, they cut it. I don't know why. Maybe they spliced it and the wire strands weakened. So that's the problem. Next, the two wires. So again, as you'll see, not just splicing, but they cut the wires of the TPS and they just twisted the wires, no soldering. So same thing, just twisted the wires after cutting it. There you go. So let's remove the brittled out insulator. I'm gonna replace it. Thermo switch. So this is the wire for the thermo switch. The thermo switch is not OEM anymore. That's not an OEM thermo switch. Balik dito. And this is the socket for the idle air control valve, the IAC. As you'll see, there's also wire deterioration here. The insulator cracked already, exposing the wire strands. So we're going to repair this. So as you'll see here, the power steering load sensor socket has a damage due to what you call that, deterioration. As you'll see, the insulator cracked already. There's a crack here, here, and here. So we're going to test it if it's brittled or someone just spliced a wire. Try to bend it. There you go, it cracked. See? That's a sign that the wire, the insulator of the wire deteriorated already due to heat cycle. There. Let's test again here. There you go. So you'll see the wire crack. So it's already heat deteriorated. So let's test here. Same thing. Same thing here. Same thing here. So you will also see here the socket for the retract motor here at the right hand side. As you'll see, there are lots of wire splicing. Whew. And the socket, the female socket for this one is already missing, and they just stopped these wires here at the spliced area to connect it. So I'm sure I have an OEM socket for this one here, so that we can revert it back to the original and not just tap the wires here. So these are the wires for the retract motor, and here for the signal light there are burnt wires, burnt insulator. Also here, the wire for the headlight, all the connections have been cut and just twisted together here. I don't know why, so we're going to fix it. So again, here's the missing socket for the retract motor. Here's the male socket for the retract motor. As you'll see, there are wire splicing, and even this wire here got cut already. And the reason they spliced is they removed the OEM socket, the female socket, and they just tap the wires here at the splicing. So we're going to provide an original socket for this one here, a 6-pin socket. So we'll get a new stock here. So here's a match for the retract motor socket. 6 pins, same as the one on the other side here, the left hand side. The socket is here, but there are again wire splicing. So here's the socket that we're going to install here to revert it back to OEM. So we're gonna clean this first, the socket here. So here's the right hand retract motor socket. So you'll see there's no damage anymore, back to OEM. And now here for the headlight wires and for the signal light and also the park light. As you'll see, there are signs of burning of the wires. So far the socket for the headlight bulb is still good. So this is the socket for the right hand retract motor. As you'll see, there's a deterioration of the terminals inside, and of course dirt. And so you'll see the splicing of the wires, deteriorating the OEM wiring. We're gonna revert this back to the original condition. So this is the fuel injector harness. As you'll see, I see signs of splicing again here at the number 2 fuel injector. So I'm going to remove this harness here, the injector harness, and repair it. So here's the fuel injector harness of the Mazda Miata NA 1.6. As you'll see, this is the injector number 2 with the splicing, signs of melting here, as you'll see, but the locks are still intact on other melting. So far, this main socket is still good, no signs of melting, but as you'll see here at the back portion of the cylinder head, there are signs of burning. This is the socket for the temperature sensor, the thermosensor, and the socket for the ECP. Both have signs of fire burning. So for the thermo switch here, since it's not OEM already, it's just a simple terminal type. That's why they just twisted the wire here. So we're going to use a socket. Here we can use this. There you go. Just need to clean it. It's a Japan surplus single terminal socket. So back here at the fuel injector harness and the burnt plastic here, the plastic insulator. The ECT socket can still be used, but there's a part here where the plastic, you need to remove it. The old insulator that got melted due to fire. So there you go. So the thermosensor socket, the sensor for the temperature gauge, as you'll see, it got melted due to fire. The original shape is like this one here. This is the identical socket. As you'll see, got deformed already. So this is after stripping the ejector harness. These 3 electrical tape here are OEM. So here, as you'll see, there's a splicing here. This is now the injector harness. This is still the ECT socket, as there's still melting here. Also the rubber grommet, now fully insulated than before. Now we're just going to install this. Now to lay out all the wiring, we're just going to clean this first. This part here is too dirty. This is the retract motor socket. As you'll see, there's corrosion in the terminals, and one of the terminals already weakened. As you'll see, it got broken. The one here at the top, the right, it's broken already, so we're going to replace this. Try to bend it, the terminal. It's weakened, as you'll see. More so here, as you'll see, it's soft already, so we need to change the socket. So here's now the socket for the headlight retract motor. At the right hand side, as you'll see, it's now good again. So there's also splicing here at the retract motor beside the repaired socket here. So let's see. So there you go, another splicing, and the wire goes here. Ground. Ayan, no?
Diretso dito.
Saan dyan?
Ito pala.
So I'll just remove this since this is not OEM, because this is not the proper way in repairing a system. We should find the cause of the problem and not add wires. So this is the wire. So here's now the wiring for the signal light and the park light located here. So here's one of the wire for the diagnostic port. As you'll see, there's a repair. Let's check the inside. We'll remove the tape, and as you'll see, it's too bulky. I'm sure they just twisted the wires here, no soldering. There you go. As you'll see, I'm right. They just twisted the wires together. I don't know what happened here. I think they repaired the connection, as you'll see. So we're gonna remove this. Side cutting. Hawakan mo na ng camera. the non-OEM wire used for repairing the connection. So here's the wire after repairing it. So here's the socket for the airflow meter, the VAF sensor. As you'll see, again, lots of splicing, so deteriorating the system wiring of this Mazda Miata. So we're going to repair this. Also here, as you'll see, the rubber insulator is already deteriorated, so we're just gonna remove it, totally remove this insulator, since it has no purpose anymore, since the rear part is already exposed. The rubber part here at the back is already missing, so it will look better if we'll just remove this rubber, just the same to what I did here in the EPS socket. As you'll see, I already repaired that. Better looking than retaining this rubber here. So here's after removing all the insulator, the electrical tape. All the wires are taped with electrical tape, but 2 wires are with heat shrink. There, they just twisted the wires. I don't know why they cut the wires, then they just reconnected it. I don't know if they just changed the socket, but still not good. There is a better way of repairing the socket and not ruining the OEM wires. So I'm going to repair this. So for the headlight socket, the socket is still good, and this one here has a broken wire, as you'll see. And also the black wire here is missing, but you'll see the black wire here, so it's probably within here, inside this insulator. The socket for the Retract motor, there are lots of splicing again, as you'll see. We'll remove the electrical tape later. And this is the socket, the wires for the radiator fan motor, and another splicing here. And I think not just splicing, but they cut it in this and then reconnected it. And this is for the horn. So we'll remove first the electrical tape here and here at the Retract motor socket. Also here, the socket for the motor itself, as you'll see, there are also splicing. Again, splicing again, multi-splicing. Again, if it's not brittled, the insulator of the wire is not brittled, and you see broken insulator, then probably the cut. And here, after removing the electrical tape, you'll see the cutting of the wires here, and here the splicing at the socket for the Retract motor harness side. You'll see the strand of the wires, many are damaged. And here at the socket, the Retract motor itself, you see there's splicing and the connected wires, but it's already cut, and I don't know why again. Wire for the radiator fan, as you'll see, there's a sign of burning of the wire here, there, overheating of the terminal. So we're going to repair this. Also the socket is missing, it's not here. Also the terminal here, there's no terminal. So we're going to provide a Japan surplus socket for this. For the radiator fan motor, so you'll see here, they just made a new connection here towards the non-OEM relays here. So I'm going to disconnect this wire here and revert it back to the original configuration. So this is the left hand side Retract motor. As you'll see, the wires, they are splicing and they connected the wire, but I don't know why the connected wire they did here, they just cut it again. So you'll see more splicing here, and I see a cracked open area of the cover here, the black plastic cover. Buksan mo nga to. I think there's a problem with the internal relay of the Retract motor, and they just made a remedy. So there you go, they remedied the stop position, I think. So I think we need to replace this motor here. Open this thing. So for the relay on this side here, the left hand side, you'll see the socket is still good, the wires are still good. Also this one here, still good, but this one here, as you'll see, the relay is not the original one anymore, and looks like there's no socket used. They just used terminals, I think. So they just soldered the wires directly to the relay, so not a good step. So we're going to fix this to a proper way. So as you'll see, there's also splicing here at the horn relay. So we're gonna remove the tape and check what's inside this. They just spliced it or they cut it, but as you'll see, the wire colors are different. So let's check it out. So this is the aircon system wiring harness, all non-OEM. As you'll see, it's so messy. So there are a total of 3 relays here. So I'm going to cut the non-OEM wires for the non-OEM condenser fan. So you'll see it's all messed up, and dangling here the wires. Let's remove this shit here. So you'll see here, this is the condenser fan. Let's cut it. There's no socket. There you go. Okay, there you go. We removed the non-OEM wiring harness for the aircon system. As you'll see, it's so fucked up.
Let's start.
So as you'll see, removing the harness here, it's now very clean. So there you go, the engine is running. Try mo yung retract, LG. Wala pa rin yata ito eh. Ayun kang daliri mo, alisin mo yung daliri mo dyan. Pero dapat to, lumalaban na to kung buhay ito eh. There you go, it's flashing. Park light ba yan? The other one on the left side is fuck busted. Try to rev it. So as you'll see, the engine runs better than before after repairing the wiring. Dati ito parang naglalag pa to, di ba? Laking bagay talaga ng wiring. You just need to tighten the alternator belt. It's slipping while revving it up. Pero ang galing, no? Isipin mo yung soling video natin ito pag gano'n, di ba? Ito konting ano lang, oh. Di ba? Rev ka agad siya eh. Minsan to, di ba, pag ano eh, kailangan mataas na yung RPM. Kailangan mataas na yung RPM para ma-feel natin yung ano, di ba? Yung malakas mag-respond. Ito kahit konti lang eh. Ba talaga nagagawa ng ano, maayos ang wiring. So, tsaka iba din nagagawa ng ano, yung nagagawa, the Jack Daniels. So, the relay here needs replacement because the radiator fan is not working. Here's the non-OEM wiring for the aircon system. You need to rewire completely the aircon system because it's not in the right configuration. The wiring harness is the one triggering the radiator fan, and not the original wires there. I reverted it back to the original configuration. The remaining problem is the aircon system, the complete rewire of the aircon system, since the original wiring for the aircon system is not here. There's a built-in cup holder here at every Mazda Miata. You'll see, if you want to drink together with your Mazda Miata, just place your glass of drink here. 2 cup holders built in within the Mazda Miata NE. The non-OEM wire here goes there, and we'll check where it goes.
Hilahin ko na kaagad po.
So here we go, we remove the electrical tape at all the connections of this wiring. As you'll see, no soldering. All the connections, no soldering. So we're going to rewire the complete aircon system of this Mazda Miata here.